Good evening, hello and welcome to the launch event of the Text, Checker and Translation Manifesto on Macht.Sprache. My name is Celikel and I'm honored to be yet again hosting a Macht.Sprache event, and I'm looking forward to the exchange with our speakers and the audience. So maybe you don't know what Macht.Sprache is yet. The project has developed a web app in order to facilitate politically sensitive translation between English and German. The project has existed since early 2020, first with the support of the Department for Culture and Europe at the Senate of Berlin, and now it's supported by the Prototype Fund. And we are here to launch the Text Checker and the Translation Manifesto. Both are meant to be practical tools for translators. And today we will learn about the ideas and thoughts behind the project. And before we now start introducing the team, I'd like to voice a trigger warning. We are going to talk about tools for translating politically sensitive topics. So we might mention topics and words that might trigger a reaction. I'll describe the course of the event. So first I'll introduce the people behind the idea, and then we'll talk to the development team. And there'll be enough time for discussion, hopefully. Okay, so first let's talk to the team behind it. It's Lucy and Anna. Hi, hello. Lucy Gasset teaches literary and postcolonial studies at the University of Potsdam. She completed her PhD in 2019 and is co-founder of Pocolit. It's a literary platform. She grew up in Cape Town, South Africa, and has lived in Berlin since 2014. Hello, Lucy. Anna von Rath lives in Berlin, and she is active in the field of social justice and diversity as a translator and editor. In 2019, she completed her PhD in cultural studies with a postcolonial focus, and she's a co-founder of the platform Pocolit. I have a few questions for you. Could you perhaps describe the project for those who don't know much about it yet? Yeah, sure. There are a few points. Let's talk about the motivation behind it. I'll try to sum it up. You've already said that Lucy and I started Pocolit, an online platform for postcolonial literature. And for that platform, we read a lot in English and German, in original and in translation. And we talk about these books, and we write essays, we comment on them at Pocolit. The platform is bilingual, so all publications are in German and English in parallel. So we translate a lot of these things ourselves. And while doing so, we very often notice that there are a lot of terms that are very difficult to translate. And it helped me a lot to tell both of us a lot to talk to each other about it. And so we were looking for a solution which could help us deepen this conversation and talk to other people as well. And so Macht.Sprache came out of that project. And since April, since the first event that you hosted actually, there is also the option to join the discussion at macht.sprache.de. So you can introduce a term there or a short text passage and discuss it. That's one reason behind the project. And another reason behind it is that we noticed that people are much more interested in politically sensitive translation. The need is there. We think it's to do with events like Me Too or like Black Lives Matter, which became very visible last year. So people are more aware of the fact that there are very diverse life realities and that it makes sense to consider them in translation. So translators themselves often have the active wish to translate more sensitively. So it's not just the two of us who happen to be interested in politically sensitive translation, but we hear it a lot. And a third point, motivation behind it all, is that we see that a lot of events take place online, like ours today. So people from all over the world can participate. Maybe the audience today could write and tell us where they come from. And for such events, we had events where there were people from South Africa and from Iran and Iraq and all over the world. And so there is an interest in making such event multilingual. And here too, it's important to consider different members of the audience and to be aware of sensitive issues. So translation, or in this case, interpreting, is also crucial. So that's why we launched Macht.sprache. There are some responses to your question already. There are people from Rome here and Lange, from a lot of places. How do you go about developing the tool? Well, first of all, hi from me as well. Hi, and I'm very glad that we are making having this event with you again, Chidara. Okay, to a question. How did we go about it? How did we develop this page? From the very start, it was crucial to us to focus on cooperation, to base this whole project on collective knowledge. So we started with a platform, with Macht.sprache. And with that platform, we wanted to create a community where we can talk about politically sensitive terms and their translation. This cooperation created the data set and the knowledge, which we then used for further development. Plus, we organized open online event for introduced speakers from different topical areas. So there was a lot of exchange of knowledge and experience, different perspectives. We were always very interested in introducing different perspectives, marginalized perspectives. In our first event, we talked to a literary translator and to a cabaretist. We talked about race, about whether the word race could be kept as an English word in German. We cooperated with the Goethe Institute. We had a conversation with Kornschein, Celikel.
So this was about journalism and communication, about gender-sensitive language and creative solutions, also in cooperation with the Goethe Institute. And we had a discussion with Karin Barocca and the journalist Emil Serit about disability and the right to self-determination. And we have it on macht.sprache.de and on YouTube. And you can also find transcripts in pocket.com. And we also had interviews with people who translate or work with language in different kinds, like Hannibal Laschet and Katie Lemescher, and the producers of the Klemmemal Instagram channel. And the knowledge and the insights which we could gather in these events also were incorporated in the tool and the event, so that we launch a tool today, which is a product of collective work and exchange. Yes, I really feel this community feeling if I view your website. It's really great. So what does the text checker offer the users specifically? Well, Timur will present it shortly and the screencast, but just so that you know roughly what it's about. Let me explain. Many here actually know Google Translate or DeepL, the typical online translation programs. And our text checker might look very similar, but we just have one box. And in this box, people who want to translate a text can enter a text, a copy and paste a text. And then our text checker does not show a translation like DeepL or Google Translate, but rather it highlights specific terms which are in our database and where a sensitive translation might be necessary, and which we discussed on macht.sprache. And if it's an English language text about colonial history, for example, then it might have the term race, and then it will be highlighted. And in the end, human translators still have to translate on their own, but the text checker is meant to support them in doing this sensitively. So we don't just highlight the terms, but we also offer some information. In the curation team, in most terms, we have written up concise definitions, which are partly based on our own knowledge, our research, or input from the interviews and discussions we had. Then there are translating options on different terms, and those options, like the terms, are usually entered by the macht.sprache users. So it's common shared knowledge. So it can even become better with more use, and you can rate it so that we know, okay, other users would use it more frequently or less frequently. And we also have written a translation manifesto, and in the text checker it has integrated comments on or references to passages from the manifesto. Okay, and why did you write the additional translation manifesto? Okay, I'll let Lucy answer that. Okay, with the text checker, we wanted to offer a team. We wanted to integrate political sensitivity into translation work, and to become more sensitive in general to exchange with others. But it was also always clear, as Anna already said, that the text checker is a digital tool which cannot replace humans. It cannot, for example, detect the tone of a text. It can only make suggestions, proposals, but the translator has to decide what the best option is. And for the solution, for this, we wanted to offer additional support. And that's where the manifesto comes in. And in general, it has to acknowledge that the status quo is not good enough, and it makes the reader wants to change something. So the manifesto presents arguments for sensitive dealing with language and some basic rules and principles for translation. So the basic principles explain what we stand for: change and incompleteness. And that means that macht.sprache will also always be the subject of language change. And that's it. That is okay.
The attempts to cancel this, the attempts to fight with this challenge, what count. Secondly, collaboration and teamwork is very important, and it's a crucial part of the manifesto. Macht.sprache exists thanks to constant discussion.
that's what keeps it going. And pragmatism is another key point. It's not just a matter of abstract thinking. We are aware that translation needs pragmatic solutions. It needs future-oriented, creative, and practical solutions. So these are our three key principles. We have guidelines that integrate those. We have 8 key principles. Very important is context dependence. Context is crucial in translation. The historical, the social, the geographical, the cultural context of the author and the characters and the translator. And then secondly, genre and the attitude can also play an important role. The kind of text, the way the text deals with its topic, for instance, if it's satirical or ironic. The point 4 is positionalities, where considering the positionality of the author, of the intended audience, of the translator, and of the translator's intended audience here. So we must consider all 4. And there is also an option of keeping the original language to some degree. The 6th point is the different typographical solutions, such as the gender asterisks. The 7th guideline is about offensive language, how to deal with it. And the 8th and final one is about creative solutions. So these are the 8 key points, and that's it from me, but you are very, very welcome to read the complete manifesto. Thank you. We are really looking forward to it. Thank you. Thanks a lot to the both of you for the insights and for the processes behind this extremely complex topic. Thank you. Okay. And now I'd like to turn to the technical perspective of macht.sprache.
So now, Kolja, he's UI and UX designer and web developer, and co-founded Völlig Ohne Design Lab in 2016. He studied digital media in Bremen and has already 9 years of experience in a startup and is a freelancer in Berlin. Hi, Timur. Kolja Lange is a full-stack developer. He studied digital media in Bremen, lives in Berlin, and works as a software developer. Hi, Kolja. So, shall we start the screen sharing? Yes, let me guide you through the app. So, yeah, you'll show us how the text checker works. Yes, let me start here on the starting page. So you see here the most recent aspects, and below you have macht.sprache the same way it will always have it. And as you just heard, understand that still remains the discussion platform. So we have the text checker and the manifesto directly in the menu. Let me go into the text checker, and you can't see that much. You see a big text box where you can enter some text. You can select language and then check it. Let me start the German text from the Rank magazine by Max Schilek. And if I was an editor or creator, so it's a bilingual magazine. So it's really applicable if I wanted to translate it. What would I have to pay attention to, or what ideas are there? So I took a small part of the text, I select the language, and then I click check. And we have to wait for a moment. Now it will get faster. And now the text checker already found a few things where you potentially have to translate sensitively. And if I hover my cursor over it, I know I'll here. No, so I said it already that we have definitions here. So we have a definition and possible translations directly from our database created by our community in order of rating. Integration is also highlighted. Leitkultur. And I open Desintegration, for example. We see once again the definition. Those are the translations from our community. And they are weighed according to their rank. If you know our platform, you will understand them, but the ranking is important. And here are some excerpts from the Manifesto Guidelines we talked about. And we looked for 2 usually for every term which are particularly relevant. In this case, for example, context, and keep the original. So we might keep the original term in this context. Do I have to be registered in order to use the text checker? No, you can use it directly. And from on your side, on the technical side, what was the most difficult part of the development? Let me just show you a few more things, and then we'll talk about the difficulties. We'll see difficulties right away because we have one term. A strange term, komische Begriff. And komisch, you wouldn't think that's sensitive, but it still appears because it can be a translation for a different term, namely queer in this case. And the user, well, it might be hard to see whether it's really a sensitive context or not. In this case, it's not actually. The other hits are quite good in this case. And let me show you a different text from Pawel, from the blog, Lucy's blog on postcolonial literature. It's bilingual as well, so these texts have to be translated as well. It's an interview with Yasmin Altinai. So now we pick English and check it. Once again, we have highlighted a few terms. We see the translations here.
Da schauen wir uns jetzt mal den Begriff LGBT. Nee, genau diesen Begriff an.
Und so if you look at this term, LGBTIQA, you see it's a similar case. We don't have this term in the database. We have a different term in the database. And it's a translation for the German term. In this case, we don't have that much information. That's a smaller view, so we can have a word which is a translation of several things. That's a bit exotic in this case. We can discuss it later on when we are talking about the difficulties, the challenges. And let's look at a different term where we see a translation, so the word possible translations, and 2 other guidelines from the Manifesto. Keep the original language and creative solutions. It is still linked to the platform aspect of Machtsprache. If I click on that, I see the term in Machtsprache. So I can add a comment. I can add another translation. I could go and rate it, so I can do anything I can do on Machtsprache. But let me come back for a moment, close the overlay. And what we also have is, I see, okay, there's a term which is interesting or might need a sensitive translation, and I can highlight it, and it says click to add the missing term to macht.sprache. And then I can directly say, okay, add term, and then it will directly appear in macht.sprache and will be highlighted by the text checker for other users. And you can add your comment here. Exactly, I can add my comment and suggest translations. I won't do that because I wanted just to show this as a test. I don't want to put it in the database. Okay, communities we already had, but let me also show the manifesto. I can just click on that, and then I will land in the manifesto, or I could go through the menu. So you don't have to go through the text checker to see the manifesto. It has an intro, what's important, how it was developed, the basic principles, and the guidelines, which Lucy was talking about. You can expand this, collapse it. So that was my presentation. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for sharing. I didn't know that you could highlight the terms yourself. Also, thank you for showing that to me. So what would you say, the two of you, what was the technical challenge in developing the text checker?
Ja, also ein Problem ist auf jeden Fall so, dass
one problem is
der Begriffe,
the matching of the terms.
Also einfach weil Sprache kompliziert ist.
Just because language is difficult, you can have a conjugated or adequate form. Different forms of actions. That's a classic problem in computer science, but there are many different approaches with their own benefits and drawbacks. So you might show too many terms or too few terms, terms which are similar but have a different meaning. And of course, we already heard the context is always important. We can't do a perfect job. You know, it's not perfect, but we'll continue working on it and continue improving it. And the approach we chose, and we already used in different contexts, it's called natural language processing. We try to get a base form of every word we have. And we can detect this very well. But we also want to introduce fuzzy search so that we can allow some small differences and still detect the correct word. Fuzzy search? Yes, so that's a more usual term in English. That's what the more search engines do as well.
Timur, kannst du denn was zum Design des Manifests sagen?
Timur, can you tell us something about the design of the manifesto? Yes, so on the one hand, it's part of the overlay. When you click on a word, then the challenge was this huge amount of information we have to weigh the translations and the excerpts from the manifesto, that you still perceive them, but that you still know what this was actually about. So we were discussing it with the curators Lucy and Anna. No, this is important and this is important as well. But then we had to make some things smaller after all, so that we had a bit of hierarchy in there. And the manifesto itself was structured as well. Yes, it's hard to decide how deep you want to go, right? Yes. I can imagine. Thank you very much. So it is very user-friendly. For me at least. So I am not very good technically, but I managed it. So
thank you. And now let me have a look if there are any questions in the chat. Okay, you're welcome to ask questions. The audience is welcome. It's your chance. There is one. Is there a plan to use the tool with other languages too? Would like to answer? Okay. Currently, there is no concrete plan, but it's open source. So we're hoping that people who like the idea maybe transfer it to other languages. Do you have anything to add, Timur? Yeah, so everything's open source. If other people want to use it in some other way with another pair of languages, it should be useful. It should be usable. We try to keep it not only open source but also as open as possible for other languages. Of course, it's a lot of work, but it can be used. Thank you, Friedrich, for the question. Nikolai saying, thank you, that looks really helpful. How do you try to make more people hear of it and use it? Okay, I can say a couple of words maybe, and maybe Anna will add a bit. It's really tricky, really. That's why we organized this event, for instance. We want to become more visible, to make the project more visible, and especially as a tool. We are very active on social media, at Pocolit. Please friend us, please read us. We'll keep you posted. So we try to spread the word via social networks and so on. Anna, do you have anything to add? That's a really central point. We are trying very, very hard to become more visible. If you have any idea how we can make it better, then please do. As I said before, the whole project depends very much on the community, on people adding terms to the text checker. We need reviewers, and I very often was unsure in my own translation, and then I posted a term and asked people about it, and other users answered and helped me. I still must decide if it's the right answer, of course, but it's really very, very helpful to have support from the community. We are open for new strategies, but we're already trying hard to be present and active. Okay. There's a technical question here. Can I use the tool with DeepL?
Achso, ja, also wir arbeiten tatsächlich.
We actually are working on a browser, Pawel. It's partially supported by the fund, so that could be integrated into DeepL and Google Translate. And for now, Jens, you can just enter the original and the DeepL translation into the text checker and see what it says. The plugin will probably be available in late February, early March. And that's an important point, I think. When we integrate it into existing programs, that will hopefully help us reach a wider audience. Not everybody has to go onto our homepage in order to use it. So that will hopefully make it more accessible. Have another question here. Who takes care of the comments on the platform? Is there an who edits it? What if I want to add an alternative translation suggestion? We all take care of it a little bit. We share it all. We talked a lot about trolls in the beginning, and were worried with such a sensitive topic. What happens if there is if a troll turns up and writes something up? So it could get unpleasant. So we had been very cautious from the start. We have a detailed code of conduct for the website. But so far we had been very, very lucky. So far we only encountered people who actually see it all positively and constructively. So our job was easy actually. We don't edit the comments. If you see something that you find offensive, you can tell us, and we'll look into it, and we'll warn the user. Is that an answer?
Ja, wunderbar, vielen Dank, schreibt sie. Aber hattet ihr denn jetzt bisher schon Probleme mit Trolls?
So have you had any problems with trolls? Not at all. Wow, great. Well, of course, that's also partially because we are not that well known. We don't have that much traffic yet. And today you might have noticed the link to the event has been posted openly. So everybody is welcome, but we were worried who might come. Again, we were worried that some troll might turn up. So that's something we always have in the back of our heads. And we every time we have to decide between openness and that and care.
So wie es aussieht, habt ihr noch Fragen?
Do you have any questions?
Gibt's hier noch irgendwas, was ihr gerne?
Dear audience, any more questions?
Oh, ich finde euch großartig und nehme euch gern mit in meinen
I think you are great. You are part of my anti-racism reading list now, says Sabine Tatz.
Was mir gerade noch eingefallen ist, was man noch ergänzen könnte.
One other thing I'd like to add in the framework of the prototype fund, the support that we get, there are also gendering tools. The browser plugin will also be available for terms that might profit from gendering. Great. Thank you. Yes, so before closing the event, I'd like to invite you all to participate in the discussions on macht.sprache and use the text checker. We can all work on that project together. And thank you very much, dear project team. Thanks a lot for facing that challenge, for trying to give us a tool to deal with politically sensitive problems. And thank you, dear audience. Thank you for taking the time to learn about that project. And thank you for questions. I really enjoyed the event today. And I wish you a wonderful evening, wonderful Christmas holidays if you celebrate Christmas, and please stay healthy and have a happy new year. Thank you. Vielen Dank, Kidera. And everyone. Thank you.